The first thing Maya felt was the dirt beneath her cheek. Gritty, coarse, and slightly damp. Her head throbbed with a dull, insistent pain, and her mouth tasted of copper and salt. She lay still for several moments, cataloging her body's complaints. Bruised ribs, a sharp ache in her left shoulder, and a persistent ringing in her ears. The familiar weight of her emergency beacon was noticeably absent from her utility belt. A quick pat of her pocket confirmed her personal communicator was gone too, equipment that never left her person during a mission. Slowly, carefully, she opened her eyes. The sky above her was wrong. Not the familiar blue of Earth, but a pale lavender streaked with ribbons of amber. Maya blinked several times, certain she was hallucinating, but the alien sky remained unchanged. She pushed herself up to a sitting position, wincing as her ribs protested, and took stock of her surroundings. She sat in a small clearing surrounded by vegetation that resembled Earth's ferns and mosses, but colored in shades of deep purple and indigo. In the distance, impossibly tall spires rose like skeletal fingers, their surfaces glittering in the light of what appeared to be two small suns. The air smelled of ozone and something else, something sweet and unfamiliar. "This isn't possible," Maya whispered, her voice sounding strangely muffled in the alien atmosphere. She inhaled deeply, analyzing the air quality instinctively, the exobiologist in her never truly off duty. The oxygen content felt sufficient, but there was something else in the mix, something her lungs weren't accustomed to processing. Each breath left a subtle aftertaste at the back of her throat, like mint with an undertone of metal. The last thing she remembered was the Artemis mission. She had been aboard the orbital station, preparing for her shift in the observation deck. Commander Chun had messaged about an anomaly in the sensor readings. While cross-checking the spectral analysis, there had been an alarm, a sudden decompression warning, then the horrifying sound of tearing metal. She remembered reaching for her emergency suit, fumbling with the seal, and then nothing. Now she was here, wherever here was, with no equipment, no communications, and no sign of her crewmates. "Chun? Rodriguez?" "Anybody," she called out, her voice dissipating quickly in the strange atmosphere. Only silence answered her. Maya checked her flight suit. The patches identifying her as Dr. Maya Krishnamurthy, exobiologist, Artemis Station, were still intact. Her pockets contained a multi-tool, a small medical kit, and a ration bar, standard items she always carried during her shifts. Not nearly enough for survival on an alien world. "Think, Maya," she muttered. "Protocol for unplanned planetfall." But there was no protocol for this. No human had ever set foot on an exoplanet before. The Artemis mission had been observational only, studying a potentially habitable world from orbit. They weren't equipped for landing, and certainly not for survival on an alien surface. The rustling sound from the undergrowth snapped Maya from her thoughts. She scrambled to her feet, ignoring the pain in her ribs, and reached for her multi-tool, the closest thing to a weapon she possessed. The rustling grew louder, and then a creature emerged from between the fern-like plants that was roughly the size of a large dog, with 6 limbs and a body covered in what looked like iridescent scales. Its head was dominated by 3 large, compound eyes that glittered like black diamonds. The creature regarded Maya with what she could only interpret as curiosity, tilting its head from side to side. "Hello," Maya said, keeping her voice low and calm despite the hammering of her heart. "I'm not going to hurt you." The creature made a clicking sound, then abruptly turned and vanished back into the undergrowth. Maya let out a shaky breath. At least the wildlife didn't seem immediately hostile. That was something. She needed to find shelter, water, and assess whether anything on this world was safe to eat. And she needed to figure out how she had gotten here, and more importantly, how to get back to as the twin suns began to set. Casting long shadows across the clearing, Maya gathered what material she could to construct a rudimentary shelter. She carefully avoided touching any of the plants directly, using her multi-tool to cut branches and leaves. She had no idea what toxins they might contain. "I wish I had some proper tools," she said aloud, envisioning the survival kit that should have been standard issue for any planetary mission. A tent, a water purifier, a portable scanner. A strange tingling sensation swept over her, like static electricity dancing across her skin. Her vision blurred momentarily, a wave of dizziness threatening to topple her. She steadied herself against a nearby purple fern-like plant, then immediately jerked her hand away, remembering her earlier caution about alien vegetation. When her vision cleared, she gasped. The air in front of her shimmered with a prismatic effect, like sunlight through oil. Then, impossibly, a compact survival tent materialized, falling to the ground with a soft thud. Beside it appeared a water purification unit and a handheld scientific scanner, exactly as she had pictured them. Maya took an involuntary step backward, her heart racing. The objects hadn't simply appeared. She had witnessed their formation, particles coalescing from nothing, assembling into complex structures in defiance of every physical law she knew. Maya stared, unable to process what she was seeing. She approached cautiously, half expecting the items to disappear or transform into something else. But they remained solid and real. The tent bore the Artemis mission logo. The scanner was the exact model she had trained with. "This isn't real," she whispered, but when she touched the tent, it felt solid and familiar beneath her fingers. A hypothesis began to form in her mind, one so outlandish that she almost dismissed it immediately. But the evidence was right in front of her. If I can think something into existence. She hesitated, then clearly pictured a first aid kit, complete with painkillers for her ribs and shoulder. The same tingling sensation returned, and a standard-issue medical kit appeared at her feet. "That's impossible," Maya said, but she was already kneeling to open the kit. Inside were precisely the medications she needed, arranged exactly as they would be in the Artemis med bay. Maya's scientific mind raced through possible explanations. Hallucination? Some kind of alien technology creating illusions? Or was she actually shaping reality with her thoughts? Each hypothesis seemed more improbable than the last, but she couldn't deny the evidence of her senses. She swallowed 2 painkillers from the kit, then set up the tent with practiced efficiency. As she worked, her mind returned to the fundamental question. How had she gotten here? The distance between Earth and the exoplanet they had been studying was over 20 light years. No human technology could transport her here instantly. Unless I'm not actually here at all, she said aloud. What if this is some kind of simulation, or a coma dream, or even an elaborate hallucination caused by oxygen deprivation during the decompression event? But the pain in her ribs felt real enough, as did the cool evening air on her face and the gritty soil beneath her boots. She pinched her forearm hard, watching as the skin blanched and then reddened. The sensation was unmistakably real. She recalled her neurophysiology training. Even the most vivid hallucinations rarely included consistent, accurate pain responses across multiple sensory inputs. And dreams, no matter how realistic, typically contained inconsistencies and logical flaws that became apparent upon close examination. The scientific method, she reminded herself. Observe, hypothesize, test, analyze. She would approach this as she would any research question. If this was a simulation, it was impossibly detailed. As night fell, strange bioluminescent particles began to drift through the air, casting a soft blue glow over the landscape. Maya retreated to her tent, activated the scanner, and began analyzing the atmosphere, soil, and nearby plant life. The results were startling. The atmosphere was breathable but contained compounds unknown to Earth science. The soil was rich in minerals that shouldn't be compatible with carbon-based life. And the plant life. The plant life was like nothing she had ever studied. "This makes no sense," she muttered, scrolling through the data. "These compounds shouldn't be stable together. This ecosystem shouldn't work." Unless a new theory began to take shape in her mind. One even more incredible than the idea that she could manifest objects with her thoughts. Unless the physical laws here are different. Unless reality itself is more flexible. She set the scanner aside and lay back on a sleeping mat, staring at the ceiling of the tent. If her thoughts could indeed shape reality here, that would explain how she had survived what should have been a fatal decompression event. Perhaps, in her desperate moment of crisis, her mind had somehow transported her, created this place, or connected to it. Sleep did not come easily that night, but when it did, Maya's dreams were vivid and strange. She dreamed of the creature she had encountered, but in her dream, it spoke to her in a language of colors and sensations rather than words. When she awoke, the twin suns were already high in the lavender sky, and she felt a sense of purpose that hadn't been there before. Over the next few days, Maya established a routine. She expanded her camp, creating more elaborate structures and equipment as she needed them, each time feeling that strange, tingling sensation as her thoughts took physical form. She documented everything with scientific precision, recording her observations and hypotheses in a journal that she had manifested on the fourth day. While documenting the light-responsive patterns of the local plant life, she encountered the six-limbed creature again, but this time it was not alone. A group of 5 similar beings emerged from the undergrowth, their iridescent scales shifting through a spectrum of blues and violets as they moved. Unlike the first encounter, these creatures carried what appeared to be tools, long crystalline rods with intricate etchings that caught and refracted the dual sunlight. They arranged themselves in a semicircle, guarding her with their glittering, compound eyes. Maya remained still, making no threatening movements, though her hand instinctively moved toward the makeshift defensive tool she'd fashioned from local materials. "Hello again," she said softly. "I wish I could understand you." The tingling sensation returned, stronger than before, and suddenly, impossibly, she could understand the clicking and whistling sounds the creatures were making. "Different, not like us, but shapes the world," one was saying. "Dangerous?" another replied. "Uncertain, observing." Maya's breath caught in her throat. "You can hear me? You can understand me." The creature's attention focused on her with startling intensity. "It communicates," the first one said. "It is aware." "I'm aware," Maya confirmed. "My name is Maya Krishnamurthy. I'm a human from Earth. I don't know how I got here." There was a flurry of clicking and whistling as the creatures communicated among themselves. "It calls itself Maya," the first creature eventually said. "It claims to be from elsewhere. It shapes reality with its mind," another said. "Like the architects." That word, architects, triggered something in Maya's mind. A flash of understanding, gone before she could grasp it. "What are the architects?" she asked. Creatures went silent, their compound eyes fixed on her. "The architects created this world," the first creature finally said. "They shaped reality with their thoughts, as you do. But they are gone now, gone for many cycles." "And you?" Maya asked. "What do you call yourselves?" "We are the keepers," the creature replied. "We maintain what the architects built. We observe. We remember." "I'm not an architect," Maya said. "I'm just lost." "Yet you shape reality," the keeper said. "This is the power of the architects. No others have wielded it since they departed." Over the following weeks, Maya learned more about the world she had found herself in, or perhaps the world that had found her. The keepers shared their knowledge freely, explaining that the planet had been created as a kind of experiment by beings they called the architects, entities with the power to manipulate reality through thought alone. The architects wished to understand creation itself. The keeper named Vex explained one evening as they sat outside Maya's increasingly elaborate shelter. They built this world as a laboratory, a place where the rules of reality could be bent and reshaped. But who were they? Maya asked. Where did they come from? Vex's compound eyes glittered in the bioluminescent light. Some say they came from beyond the stars. Others believe they evolved from beings like us. The truth is lost to time. All we know is that they wielded great power, and then they vanished. And now I have the same power, Maya mused, looking down at her hands. Over the weeks, she had refined her ability to shape reality with her thoughts, creating not just objects but more complex systems. A hydroponics garden that produced earth vegetables, a communications array, though it received no signals, even a small fusion generator to power her equipment. You have a fraction of their power, Vex corrected. The architects could reshape mountains with a thought. They could create life. They could alter the very fabric of existence. Maya nodded, acknowledging the limitation. She had discovered boundaries to her abilities through careful experimentation. Her first attempt to create complex electronic equipment had resulted in devices that resembled Earth technology but failed to function properly. When she had tried to manifest biological materials, specifically a culture of Earth bacteria for her research, she had produced only inert organic compounds arranged in approximately correct patterns. The limitations followed a clear pattern. She could create objects and systems she understood well, but nothing too far beyond her knowledge. The more detailed her understanding, the more precise and functional the manifestation. Her expertise in exobiology allowed her to create sophisticated analysis equipment, but her more limited knowledge of quantum physics meant that attempts to manipulate fundamental forces remained largely unsuccessful. She couldn't, for instance, manifest a starship capable of interstellar travel. The physics were simply too complex for her mind to properly conceptualize and thus bring into being. The realization had been simultaneously frustrating and fascinating, suggesting that the power worked at the intersection of thought and knowledge, imagination constrained by understanding. It's as if the power requires a mental blueprint, she explained to Vex. I can only create what I can fully conceptualize, down to its functional components. There's something else, Vex said, his tone changing subtly. Something the other keepers do not wish me to tell you. Maya leaned forward. What is it? The architects did not simply vanish. They evolved. They transcended physical form, becoming one with the reality they had created. At least, that is what our oldest records suggest. A chill ran down Maya's spine. And you think that's what's happening to me? That I'm becoming an architect? I do not know, Vex admitted. But your power grows each day. And there is a prophecy among the keepers, passed down through generations. When the stars align in the pattern of awakening, a new architect will arise from beyond the void. Maya looked up at the night sky, where unfamiliar constellations glittered. I don't want to transcend or evolve or whatever. I just want to go home. Perhaps those are not mutually exclusive desires, Vex suggested. That night, Maya dreamed of Earth, of the Artemis station, of her colleagues, of the family she had left behind. Her younger sister Priya's graduation was in 3 months. She had promised to be there, even if only via satellite link. In her dream, she stood in the observation deck, looking down at the exoplanet they had been studying, looking down at where she now was. The perspective shifted, dizzying and disorienting, rotating through impossible angles until she was simultaneously observing the planet from orbit and standing on its surface. In this dual awareness, mathematical patterns emerged, not as equations, but as visible energy flows connecting thoughts to matter, intention to reality. She watched as quantum probabilities collapsed, not randomly, but in response to conscious observation. The membrane between thought and physical reality was thinner here, more permeable. The dream knowledge filled her with a sensation of expansiveness, as if her consciousness were spreading beyond the boundaries of her physical form. She saw the history of the planet unfold in rapid sequence. The architects arriving, shaping, experimenting, evolving. Their forms were indistinct, but their intentions resonated with a familiar pattern. Human. Not in biology, perhaps, but in the unique signature of their consciousness. Curious, determined, creative. A flash of recognition surged through her dreaming mind. We are their descendants. She awoke with a gasp, her mind racing with newfound insight. The room seemed to shimmer around her, responding to the intensity of her thoughts. She scrambled for her journal and began writing frantically, mapping out the theory that had come to her in her dream. The equations, the principles, the connections, they flowed from her mind with a clarity that felt almost supernatural. Quantum field manipulation, probability wave functions, consciousness as a fundamental force rather than an emergent property. Concepts that had eluded Earth's greatest physicists fell into place with astonishing simplicity. When the twin suns rose, Maya sought out Vex and the other keepers. I think I understand now, she told them, clutching her journal. This world, this reality, it's a nexus point, a place where thought and matter intersect more fluidly than elsewhere in the universe. The architects didn't create it from nothing. They discovered it and learned to harness its properties. The keepers clicked and whistled among themselves, their compound eyes fixed on her. And you believe you can do the same? Vex asked. I think I already have been, Maya replied. But not consciously, not with purpose. Now, I want to try something different. Over the next several days, Maya worked tirelessly, creating a structure unlike anything she had manifested before. It wasn't a machine in the conventional sense. It was more like a physical representation of the mathematical principles she had discovered in her dream. Each component had to be precisely calibrated to her thought patterns, she discovered that materials manifested with focused concentration possessed different properties than those created casually. The work taxed her physically and mentally. Each major manifestation left her exhausted, her nose sometimes bleeding from the strain. She developed a methodical approach, working in short, intense bursts followed by periods of rest and meditation. The keepers brought her nutrient-rich substances that accelerated her recovery, enabling her to push beyond human limits. The keepers watched with growing excitement and trepidation as the structure took shape, a spiraling array of crystalline elements that seemed to bend light in impossible ways. At certain times of day, when the twin suns aligned at precise angles, the entire structure became almost invisible, existing as much in potential as in reality. "Your creation bridges dimensions," observed one of the elder keepers, a being Maya had come to know as Meridian. "It exists simultaneously in multiple states of probability." "That's exactly the point," Maya explained, adjusting a crystalline node that pulsed with inner light. "Reality isn't fixed. It's a consensus of probabilities. This structure is designed to shift that consensus to allow conscious direction of probability collapse. This is beyond anything the keepers have witnessed since the time of the architects," Vex told her as they stood before the completed structure. "What is its purpose?" "It's a bridge," Maya explained, "a way to consciously direct the reality-shaping potential of this world. A way for me to go home and maybe to understand what happened to the architects. And if you succeed, what becomes of this world, of the keepers?" Maya placed a hand on the crystalline surface of the structure, feeling the subtle vibrations beneath her fingers. "That's why I wanted to talk to you. I don't want to abandon this world or disrupt the balance you have maintained for so long. But I also need to return to my own kind, to share what I have learned." Vex was silent for a long moment, his compound eyes unreadable. Finally, he said, "The prophecy speaks not of an end, but of a beginning. Perhaps your return is part of the cycle the architects envisioned." On the 40th day since her arrival on the alien world, Maya stood before the bridge she had created. The keepers had gathered in a semicircle behind her, silent and watchful. The twin suns were setting, casting long shadows across the clearing. "I have set the structure to remain stable after I'm gone," Maya told Vex. "And I have documented everything I have learned about this world, about the architects, about the nature of reality itself. It's all in my journal, which will remain here with you." "And what will you tell your own kind?" Vex asked. Maya smiled. "The truth, or as much of it as they are ready to hear. That humanity is not alone in the universe. That reality is more malleable than we ever imagined. That thought and matter are not separate, but different expressions of the same fundamental principle." She turned to face the bridge, which had begun to emit a soft, pulsating glow. The crystalline elements rotated slowly around a central axis, creating patterns that seemed to exist in more dimensions than the eye could perceive. "One more thing," Maya said, turning back to the keepers. "I think I understand what happened to the architects now. They didn't vanish or transcend. They spread themselves across the universe, seeding worlds like Earth with the potential for consciousness, for self-awareness, for the ability to shape reality through thought and will and determination." "You believe the architects created your kind?" Vex asked. "Not directly, but I think they set the conditions that made our evolution possible. And I think they're still out there, watching, waiting to see what we become." With those words, Maya turned and stepped into the pulsating field generated by the bridge. The tingling sensation that had accompanied her reality-shaping abilities now enveloped her entirely, growing in intensity until it was almost painful. She closed her eyes and focused her thoughts on home, on the Artemis station, on the observation deck where she had last been before waking on this alien world. The sensation peaked, and then Maya opened her eyes to the familiar surroundings of the Artemis station's observation deck. Through the viewport, she could see the exoplanet they had been studying, its swirling atmosphere of purple and amber, just as she remembered. According to the ship's chronometer, no time had passed since the decompression alarm had sounded. Her colleagues moved about the deck, unaware that anything unusual had occurred. To them, there had been a minor system malfunction, quickly corrected. Nothing more, but Maya knew differently. She placed her hand against the cool glass of the viewport, looking down at the world where she had spent 40 days, where she had discovered the truth about humanity's potential. "We shape our own reality," she whispered. "We always have." In her pocket, her fingers closed around an object that shouldn't exist, a small crystalline fragment from the bridge she had built. Proof that her experience had been real, and a key to the knowledge she now carried. Humanity was not alone in the universe, and they were far more powerful than they had ever imagined. Maya turned away from the viewport. She felt the familiar, tingling sensation at the base of her skull. Subtle, but unmistakable. The power she had discovered hadn't faded. It had simply adapted to the different rules of this reality. She glanced at her reflection in a darkened display panel. For a moment, she thought she saw something different in her eyes, a shimmer of awareness that hadn't been there before. She accessed a terminal and began typing rapidly, documenting everything while it remained fresh in her mind. The physics of reality manipulation, the history of the architects, the evolutionary connection between their consciousness and human thought patterns, the nature of the keepers and their world, information that would revolutionize humanity's understanding of their place in the cosmos. As she worked, she noticed small changes in the environment around her. Equipment functioning with slightly improved efficiency, plant specimens in the research bay growing more vigorously, colleagues finding unexpected solutions to problems that had stymied them for weeks. Subtle changes, nothing dramatic enough to draw attention. But Maya recognized the ripple effect of her altered consciousness influencing reality even here, where the laws of physics were more rigid. The implications were staggering. If one human, with limited understanding and training, could achieve this level of reality manipulation in just 40 days, what might be possible for humanity as a whole? What might they become with generations of focused development? Commander Chin approached her workstation. "Dr. Krishnamurthy, are you feeling all right? You seem different since the system malfunctioned." Maya smiled. "I'm fine, Commander. Better than fine, actually. I have had some insights about the planet we're studying. I think we have been looking at it from the wrong perspective." "Oh, how so?" "We have been analyzing it solely as a potential habitat, focusing on its physical properties. But I believe there's something much more significant about this world. Something that could change everything we understand about consciousness and reality." Chin looked skeptical, but nodded. "Write up your findings. If they are substantiated, we will adjust the mission parameters." "Thank you, Commander. I think you will find my report illuminating." As Chun walked away, Maya touched the crystalline fragment in her pocket again. It pulsed warmly against her fingertips, resonating with her thoughts. She had a choice now: to keep this knowledge to herself, to reveal it slowly and carefully, or to share it all at once and let humanity navigate the consequences. She thought of the keepers, of Vex's words about prophecy and cycles, of the architects who had seeded the universe with the potential for consciousness like their own. Perhaps humanity's discovery of these abilities was not an accident, but an inevitability. The next stage in a process set in motion eons ago. A new chapter was beginning, not just for Maya, but for humanity itself. Their understanding of reality, of the power of thought, of their own potential, would be transformed. The boundaries between imagination and creation would blur. The impossible would become merely improbable, then commonplace, and somewhere, she was certain, the architects were watching, not as distant gods or alien observers, but as ancestors witnessing their descendants take the next evolutionary step. She felt their presence now, not as external entities, but as patterns of thought encoded in the very structure of human consciousness. Awakening, emerging, becoming. Humanity, with all its flaws and limitations, with its relentless curiosity and indomitable will, was about to discover its true potential. The potential that had always been there, waiting to be recognized. The power to shape not just their environment, their technology, their societies, but reality itself. And the universe would never be the same.